What if I told you that you could master English verb tenses without memorizing dozens and dozens of disconnected rules? Well, that's exactly the promise behind the 10 fingers method from Professor Joseph's Simple and Efficient English. Today, we're going to break down this incredibly logical system and see how it can totally transform the way you learn English.
You know that feeling, right? You're trying to memorize all these grammar rules, and they just seem totally random and illogical. It can be so frustrating. If that sounds familiar, trust me, you are not alone. And that's exactly the problem this whole approach is designed to solve.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about why grammar feels like such a maze. Then, we'll reveal the simple pattern that unlocks everything. We'll meet the 2 key verbs that are the building blocks, then master the 10 fingers method itself. And yes, we'll even tackle the 2 tricky exceptions on our path to fluency.
Yeah, learning verbs the old-fashioned way really does feel like trying to navigate a maze, blindfolded. It's just this chaotic web of rules, and then a million exceptions to those rules. It's overwhelming. What we really need isn't more rules to memorize, but a map that shows us the simple pattern underneath it all.
And that's the good news. Hidden beneath all that mess is a surprisingly simple pattern, a core structure that governs pretty much every English sentence you can think of. And once you see it, I promise, you'll start seeing it everywhere.
This right here, this is the heart of the whole method. We're swapping out that painful rote memorization for real, logical understanding. The whole idea is that if you can just master this one single structure, you suddenly have the power to build almost any tense you'll ever need.
Okay, so this is it. This is the universal blueprint for English sentences. Just look at the pattern. For a positive sentence, it's subject, auxiliary verb, then the principal verb. Simple. Want to make it negative? You just slot the word not right after that auxiliary. And for a question, the auxiliary verb just hops to the front. That's it. This consistent structure is our foundation.
So, what are these crucial building blocks? Well, the whole system really boils down to understanding the 2 different jobs done by 2 types of verbs, the auxiliary verb and the principal verb. Let's break them down.
The easiest way to think about it is like a train. The auxiliary verb, or VA, is the engine. It does all the hard work. It changes to show the tense, the person, all the grammar stuff. The principal verb, the VP, is like the passenger. It just carries the meaning, the actual action, like eat, study, or work.
Let's zoom in on that engine for a second. The auxiliary verb. This little guy is doing all the grammatical heavy lifting. When you want to change a sentence from the present to the past, this is the only word you need to change. Seriously, it's your key to time travel in English.
Now, the principal verb, this one gives the sentence its soul. It tells you what's actually going on. Sure, it might change its form a little, like adding ing or ed, but its main job is to provide the core action, and its form is always dictated by that auxiliary verb that comes right before it.
Okay, so this brings us to the core concept. Just imagine you have 10 fingers. Each finger represents one of the 10 most important, most used verb structures in the entire English language. It's a super simple physical way to organize them in your head so you never get lost.
And here it is, the big aha moment, the secret sauce of the whole system. As we move from one finger to the next, say from present to past, that universal sentence structure we just talked about, it stays exactly the same. The only things that change are which auxiliary verb you pick and which form the principal verb takes. Let me show you what I mean.
All right, let's look at finger number 2, the present continuous, for something happening right now. The structure is our trusty subject plus VA plus VP. In the sentence, she is singing, our auxiliary verb is, that tells us it's present tense, and the principal verb gets that ing form to show the action is ongoing. See? So simple.
Okay, now watch this. Let's move to finger number 3, the past continuous. Now look really closely. What's the difference from the last example? The sentence structure is identical, the principal verb form, singing, is identical. The only thing that changed was the auxiliary verb, from is to was. And just like that, the whole sentence is now in the past. That is the logic of this entire system.
Now, you might be thinking, this seems too good to be true. What about the exceptions? And you're right, no system is perfect, but the beauty of this one is that it only has just two major exceptions. And once we face them head on, you'll see they're not that scary. They're just a little bit QWERTY.
That's it, just 2. Out of 10 core structures that are the backbone of English, only 2 of them bend the rules just a tiny bit. Doesn't that make the language feel way more predictable and, well, learnable?
So, let's meet our two little rule breakers. Finger number 1, the simple present, and finger number 4, the simple past. And their little quirk is actually pretty simple. In positive, affirmative sentences, they play hide-and-seek with their auxiliary verb. But don't worry, it's still there, just waiting to pop out.
Let's unmask the simple present. In a positive sentence like, she works, the auxiliary verb seems to be missing, right? But the moment you need to make it negative or ask a question, boom, the hidden auxiliary verb, does, pops right out to do its job, and suddenly the sentence snaps right back into our perfect universal structure.
And guess what? It's the exact same story for the simple past. You say, she worked, and the VA is nowhere in sight. But the second you need a negative or a question, out comes the auxiliary verb did, and everything falls back into that same predictable pattern. See? Even the exceptions follow a rule.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? It means you get to make a huge shift in how you think about English grammar. You're no longer just a memorizer of random facts. You're becoming a system builder. That's the real takeaway here. Your goal isn't to cram your head with hundreds of disconnected rules anymore. It's about training your brain to see the simple, elegant system, the pattern that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
And putting it all into practice becomes the simple 4-step process. 1. Decide which finger you need. What's the tense? 2. Pick the right auxiliary verb for that finger. 3. Choose the right form for your principal verb. And 4. Just assemble the pieces using that universal structure. That's it. So let's end with this thought. What if getting fluent isn't about learning more stuff, about adding more complexity? What if it's actually about unlearning the confusion and finally seeing the beautifully simple system that was right there, waiting for you all along?
We've really only just scratched the surface today. To really get a handle on this and explore all 10 fingers in detail, I absolutely recommend you dive into the source material for this explainer, Professor Joseph's Simple and Efficient English. Thanks so much for joining me.